Hi, welcome to The Power of Pod Compels You. We're Bruna and Lisa, two PhD candidates. We love horror and we love overanalyzing it. Each 2 weeks, we'll be analyzing one film that we either love or don't actually love. Today's episode will be on Black Bear, the 2020 film directed by Lawrence Michael Levine.
In Black Bear, no, sorry, I need to start again because I said that in the wrong language. Okay. In Black Bear, actress and screenwriter Allison goes off to a cabin in the hopes of finding inspiration for her next film. Whilst there, the couple hosting her behaves strangely. That's as far as I'm going to speak about the synopsis for now because a lot of weird other stuff happens after, but we'll go into that more. So, Allison is played by Aubrey Plaza, known for playing April in Parks and Recreation and films such as Ingrid Goes West, Child's Play, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. The couple, made up of Gabe and Blair, are played by Christopher Abbott and Sarah Gaden. And Black Bear is directed by Lawrence Michael Levine, who also directed the feature film Wild Canaries. So there's quite a lot to unpack. So I think there pretty much will be spoilers exclusively. Hence why I didn't want to go into the synopsis more than I did. So first off, is this actually a horror film?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it is. I think that there are horror elements, and I think that what happens to the people is a little bit horrific to some extent, but I wouldn't say that this is a horror film, although there are some horror tropes in there. How do you feel? And I'm very loose about the definition of horror, like I can say anything is horror, but just because some people tend to not agree with me, I would say that perhaps it's not.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's not really a horror film because it doesn't really because I know like Stephen King always says a horror film should be either horrifying, gory, or what's the third one again? Do you remember?
Terrifying?
I think terrifying, and the film was not really any of the three, but I'm fairly certain that it's really it's very suitable for a horror film audience, and I can't really imagine people that enjoy generic dramas or something like that would enjoy this. And it's also not really a thriller, so in a weird way I think it can fall under the horror kind of film
Umbrella.
yeah, the horror umbrella, or just more just like, oh, horror audiences will enjoy this even if they're not scared by it, but it's scary in psychological way at times. I'd say.
For sure.
So maybe it can be a little bit horrifying because I think horrifying can mean different things for different people. And I definitely thought some of the things in this was very horrible.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like watching this made me feel so um I don't know, like I felt so much anxiety by what I was watching that I don't feel the same way sometimes when I'm watching a horror from like the 80s or I don't know, whatever horror it is. That is, for example, gory or just trying to be fun. So I don't feel anxiety by watching those. But then watching Black Bear, I was constantly like, oh my God. So I do feel that, it can be horrific to some people, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot about it was really difficult to watch for sure. So obviously everyone that's listening to this has hopefully seen it. So obviously it's made up of two parts, and the first part is pretty much her going to the cabin, and then
Allison.
yes, Addison
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to the cabin, and I almost feel for me that she has the upper hand in this scenario where she's the couple is hosting her are the ones arguing and being very very strange, and Allison is kind of like the cool chick that's kind of there, and who the woman is a bit jealous of, and who the man kind of,
Mm-hmm.
kind of likes. What did you think of? Yeah, what did you think of the first part, and what did you kind of think was happening?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So, can I just say something because I have here and I forgot to say about the horror things. Um, that we were talking either whether this film is a horror or not, and we said about the horrific things. But I just think it's interesting now that you've mentioned where they were and stuff that just by being in a cabin in the woods, they're a small group of people, and the fact they cannot trust anyone. Those for sure are horror tropes that I think are just helping us say that this is a horror film and justify the fact that we're talking about it. But so yeah, the first part, yeah, completely agree with you. So Allison goes to this cabin. She was an actress. Now she's a writer, director. She's going there for inspiration. So I think that although it feels like she's running away from a past, or that she doesn't want to talk about it, when she mentions that she has or doesn't have a husband and stuff like that. But I just feel that the fact that we don't know anything about her and she doesn't let us see anything about her just completely gives her the upper hand. And I completely agree with you. She comes in, and this couple is completely, thrown aback with her. They don't know how to react. She's so cool, and they are, they are not. I mean, the guy was a musician, wasn't he?
Yes, I think in the first part he was. I actually kind of forgot because the second part he's obviously like completely the opposite. Not the
Yeah.
opposite, but very different. Yeah, but they are all artists, I think, in both
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
scenarios.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Only the what's her name? Sarah? No, Blair.
Blair.
Blair. She Sarah's the actress. Blair is not artistic in the first one. She's just pregnant, isn't she? That's her whole thing. And but I think her character is so interesting because she tries to go against her husband in so many ways. No, she's pregnant, of course, so she cannot drink or do drugs. Yet she keeps drinking more and more wine. Just love that. Not drinking whilst pregnant, of course.
No,
But
but in the
I.
character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think the first part I thought was really interesting because I made sure to pretty much not look up anything about the film because I heard it was quite trippy. So I thought,
Hmm.
okay, let's see where this is going. And at first, I thought the first part was we're watching the film she wrote,
Hmm.
which might still be true, but we'll get back to that later. Because I want to kind of like dissect both parts and then kind of see how it fits together in, according to either of
Hmm.
us. Um, and yeah, I think the most interesting part was just the relationship between the couple and, having maybe an outside force really. No, actually, that's not true because I was gonna say like, oh, an outside source is trying to is making them or may especially making Blair feel really threatened. But actually, I don't think that's true because
Hmm.
there's that whole scene over dinner where they're having like such a passive aggressive argument. And I feel like that stems from a lot of a lot of issues in the relationship that
Yeah.
started before Allison got there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but
Yeah.
overall, it was just very much. Yeah, I was really just waiting to see where it was going and what was happening, and then suddenly the second part started.
Hmm. Yeah. Um. Yeah. I feel the first part. So the couple, Blair and what's his name?
I wrote it down. Blair and Gabe.
Yeah. So Blair and Gabe. I feel that I feel like although we don't know the real version of their life because they all say different things, I do think that they had a good life. Maybe they weren't they're just in a relationship. Maybe they didn't see themselves spending eternity together. And then Gabe is not an artist anymore, so he doesn't get any money from that. They go and live in this place that belonged to Gabe's family, so it's not even labor. It didn't come from their labor, it's just something that was passed down to them. And they're just there. And I feel that perhaps, because Blair is pregnant and they have all of these stakes to be normal, I see both characters just being so controlled, trying to control themselves and try to be a version of themselves that's not necessarily who they are. And they are on a verge of a breakdown for sure. And then when Allison comes, she's just being herself. And like you said, I don't think that she necessarily is threatening them, but she's questioning them. Like she's for sure like opposing. Um, I don't know, the fact that she doesn't know who she is and she doesn't explain. Perhaps maybe that makes Gabe and Blair a bit, you know, feeling uneasy because of that. I don't know. But but yeah, I just think it's so cool to see all of the three characters breaking down. Just love it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just all of the interactions were strange,
Mm,
which made me think that we were watching a movie within a movie, and that's
yeah.
probably still my theory. But yeah, like I said, I'll get back on that.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's really all I have to really say for now about part one, because I feel like part two gets more confusing, but a lot more interesting for
Oh,
me.
you feel like that?
But
I've.
well, it'd be interesting to see if we both are very different. But I think, well, because part two is obviously she is an actress in, and she's like the lead in the film, and Gabe is her husband in this case,
Mhm.
and Blair is the other actress in the film. Um, and I kind of was very much the situation that I've heard about that happened to Jennifer Lawrence when she filmed Mother, because she
Mm,
was
yeah.
because she was dating Darren Aronofsky at the time, and I mean, I don't know if this is true or it's just rumors, but apparently he was a little bit unorthodox with like getting the right emotion out of her, and that's pretty
Mhm.
much what I think the second part of the film is about.
Mhm. Yeah. So the way that I see two films within one film. So I don't see it. My theory, is that part one and part two, what happens is not necessarily important. What I feel that is important is that because the same actors are playing the same person in the sense that, for example, they have the same name, the circumstances in which they're in is different. So the couple is no longer Blair and Gabe, now it's Allison and Gabe, and Blair is the other woman that is causing tension. So I feel that this perhaps is just an exercise in identity, in how one person can have, two identities, can have a duality about themselves. And yeah, because the characters are so different, yet they have the same name and they're played by the same person. I think it's about the whole thing is about identity. And what you said about the director being unorthodox with the actress, completely see that, and we can have an amazing discussion about that. But I think that the film itself, like Black Bear, not the second part, in my opinion, I don't know if anyone knows this, not even the guy who wrote it. I think it's about identity.
I think that's a really, really good theory because I think maybe because if you watch two parts, you think Allison is a different person each, but actually she can be the cool girl from the first part as well as
Mm-hmm.
the girl breaking down the second part, depending on who she's around and how she feels. Um, it was a little bit my theory at first as well that we're watching two different films in one film, but
Mm-hmm.
the more I thought about it, the more I think for me it's the second part happened to her, and the first part is what she wrote in her
Mm-hmm.
film because I just think if the second part happened to her, I think it makes a lot of sense because I think there's a lot of like pain in the second part for Allison, and also she gets really really drunk, which then I relate back to the first part where Blair's really drunk while she's pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously she hates in the second version she hates Blair, and so I feel like in the first one, because she has the upper hand so much, and because she can almost take control back of what happened in that situation. So she just changed a couple details to, in her writing, because there were a couple like cutaway scenes where you see her just thinking about plots. So a cutaway scene is where you're within a scene and you'll quickly move to another location to either the same character or different character, doesn't really matter, to then kind of cut back to the normal scene. A good example, if you don't know what it is Family Guy. They have it pretty much in every episode. Hopefully that clears that part up. I mean, I read other theories online where people are saying both scenarios are just different drafts of the same film, but that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sit as well with me as either what you're saying or what I'm thinking, that the second part happened and the first part didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. If you think about, I mean, if you think about the second part as being the first one, chronologically speaking, right? So, like, that happened to her, and then she went to a cabin to write. So, she's no longer an actress, she's writing. Is that what you're saying?
Um, yes, pretty much. So she's using that experience
Mm-hmm.
in her new screenplay, and obviously, um, I feel like in the second part she feels very, very broken, and people are definitely really abusing and using her, which makes me feel like in the first part that's her movie, and she, or at least the movie she envisions,
Mm-hmm.
um, where she can kind of take that control back that she lost in
Yeah.
her real life.
Yeah, it makes sense, and that would explain why she has the upper hand, and why it seems that she has the upper hand, because she created the whole thing. No, yeah, that makes total sense. I like that now.
There's so many
um,
theories that I read, and it's so interesting. And I read that the director actually really wants you to get out of it what you want, rather than, I don't
mhm,
think, I think he said he's not going to explain what his
yeah,
vision was on it, which I really like, and it makes me kind of want to discuss as well, kind of the idea of like whether a film can actually be the audience's film, because that's almost how I feel about Black Bear. It's like it's not
mhm,
just the filmmaker's film that we're consuming, we're actually actively almost taking part, right?
yeah, exactly. And see a lot of people not enjoying that, like not enjoying the fact that there's no resolution. It's so weird, and that the director himself is saying whatever you think it's right is right. But but yeah, no, it makes total sense, the fact that it's a kind of like, so the director said that he envisions that he saw his film about being about the creative process of making a film. And if we think about it, by letting the audience create its own story, or just having whatever understanding that they want, then he's extending this creative process to the audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that a lot, because I think, yeah, I definitely, I can see why not everyone would enjoy it, and it is the kind of film that I guess don't put it on like when you just want to watch something light, that
Yeah.
that kind of feeds you the story really well. And I think that's fine if you don't like this kind of stuff, but I think, and maybe this is more for people like us who enjoy analyzing and who have some experience in filmmaking, where you know kind of the process behind the scenes and where you kind of recognize certain elements of it.
Mhm.
While if you're maybe just watching it as, someone that likes going to the cinema but doesn't really do that extra bit of analyzing, maybe it's a little bit much to,
Yeah.
because I think I understand as well that people feel, well, I shouldn't have to explain the story for you, and I understand how people feel as well, but I really liked it in this case.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Even myself, like sometimes if I'm watching a film like this and I am quite tired and stuff like that, I'm like, just give me the story. I don't want to have to think. So that for sure happens to me as well. Um, but yeah, what I really liked about this film, and this might seem stupid, is that lately, so I've been watching films and I've been quite distracted. So if something is not able to, grab my attention 100%, I'll just end up getting my phone. And I think that sucks. I wish that wasn't the case, but that has been happening to me, especially now that, I took a break from watching films and now I'm watching like 2 films a day. So if the story is not, I'm not there in the story 100%, I just go into Instagram and see a story. I'm like, why am I doing this? Go back to the film. And Black Bear didn't let me do that. Like, Black Bear just grabbed me. And I was so invested in all of the passive aggressive comments. So everything that they were saying felt like they were, playing tennis. Like,
Yes.
I throw a something at you and then you throw something at me and then that's just forever happening. I just really enjoy the fact that it grabbed me.
That's actually a really good point what you were saying about the playing tennis, because that's what made me feel even more that it was like a screenplay. Because every screenplay lesson I've ever been to, they always describe writing dialogue as playing tennis, and
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it that clearly in a film before, as in this one, because it literally was like they like serve and like I don't even know the tennis terms, but you know, but you know what I mean. It was so it was literally like a tennis um match.
Match,
Yeah,
yeah.
didn't want to say game. Yeah, and it was just so clear in this film, and I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed that, and that's what made me feel even more that at least the first part is 100% a film,
Mm-hmm.
like a film in a film. Obviously, it's a film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah. No, I remember when I was in my when I was doing my undergrad, I was in my screenplay class, and the teacher played. Oh, I don't remember the name of the film, but yeah, I just remember him clearly saying, "You have to finish like a sentence. You have to finish a line of dialogue as a question, so then the other person has to say something." So exactly like a tennis match. Um, yeah, now it kind of feels that it is a film within a film, but I don't want it to be. I like the idea of being about identity more. Um, but I think it could be both as well. Like maybe Allison was trying to do, a film within a film. I mean, she wasn't trying to do a film within a film. She was her fictional character was making a film, and then it's about identity. That could be something. And how did you feel about the sexual tension? I mean, not trying to do the whole violation again and talk about penis for 5 minutes. But how did you feel about the sexual tension? Because that for me was something very important in the film.
Yeah, for sure, because that was another thing that was kind of turned around in each scene, or not each scene, sorry, each part of the film. Because
Mm-hmm.
obviously in the first part, it was very much between Allison and Gabe, who had just met, but you could really feel like, well, either something is going to happen or nothing's going to happen because but only because they stop it. And the
Mm-hmm.
second part, well, the second part, I felt like there wasn't really that tension until the end almost because I felt like Gabe and Blair, because Blair being the other actress and Gabe being the director, he was more egging Blair on to get a rise out of Allison. But then obviously by the end of that part, they also were sleeping together. So I was a little bit more surprised, I think, at that because I just thought, oh, I thought that it was more. Allison thought there was sexual tension, but there wasn't. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, in the end, it turned out that they went too far, way
Mm-hmm.
too far with it. Yeah, it was very very interesting, and I think that, again that's a part of that's why I found it interesting that it was different people involved in different in well the same people but in a they played a different part in it.
Mm-hmm. In the triangle, you might say.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just felt that the sexual tension was just too much for me. Not in the sense that I couldn't, that it was too much in a bad way, but that made me feel so nervous.
Yeah.
Because in the first one, there is a sexual tension between Gabe and Allison, but also you've got Blair just making them do stuff like dance together and what about
Mm.
this? And it's just so uncomfortable, so uncomfortable to watch. And then Allison, I feel bad for her because she's just there. She went there for like a writing retreat, and now she's in the middle of this crazy couple. that, you know, this pregnant woman keeps drinking and making them feel uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's not like Allison is being completely nice as well. She's super weird as well. But the second part made me feel super bad. The whole thing that Gabe and Blair were doing to Allison, because I could feel like Allison, like I felt so bad for her because she knew what was happening. Well, she thought she knew, and she was confronting them, and they were acting as if she was crazy, and then, but at the same time, they were, wanting her to think like that. I don't know. I just felt so bad for her.
Yeah, I think that whole segment of like her getting more drunk and them egging her on more and more, like it made me really uncomfortable. And then even when they filmed that last scene where she was completely breaking down, it was just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And it did make me really sad to think, well, if the film potentially is about the way some directors treat actors to get like a good result, that would be really sad, and I'm sure that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but also thinking back of the second one, sometimes I'm not completely convinced by my own point on it that being real because there was also a lot of really weird stuff happening. Because, for example, I think this was like one of the production runners that kept getting coffee spilled on her,
Yeah.
and that was also that's why like no theory completely fits in because of those little things that were happening alongside the main story. I think with the main storyline, I think mine as well as your theory makes so much sense. But then if I think back of those little things, like why did this woman keep getting coffee on her? Was that in the movie? Because I feel like nothing was probably in the movie for no good reason,
Yeah.
right? Like I cannot
Yeah.
imagine that was.
Exactly.
I feel like everything must have been completely thought
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. I think that perhaps, if we think about the director Lawrence Michael Levine trying to make the film about creative process in the film industry, especially indie film industry, then, perhaps just putting those things in there, there's the woman spilling coffee and the two options with the wardrobe, getting coffee all over them, so that not working. What is it? The woman getting explosive diarrhea out of nowhere. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, exactly. Like
Ah, okay.
it's like so many like weird little things like that.
Yeah, but I do feel that when you're in an indie setting, those kinds of things happen, and although they're funny, like
They're
if you've got
stressful.
explosive, yeah, they're funny and so stressful. So I think that those little things were just adding to the tension.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point because it was 100% an independent film they were shooting, and that was like very clear because of everything. And obviously, they had very little money, so it was one of those things where everyone was gonna have to stay late until Addison sorted her shit out.
Yeah,
And that's, I mean, luckily, I'm very lucky that I've never worked with like actors like that before, but you've definitely have had that, if someone can get their line right or something, you just want to get it done. It's just, there's nothing you can do until the actor sorts it out at the end of the day.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I think the script supervisor wasn't keeping track of
Oh,
like what
no,
was
she
happening.
was stoned
Yeah,
and
so she
couldn't do
wasn't keeping
stuff.
track of the lines and oh, just everything about that. And I
Yeah.
definitely think from a filmmaking perspective that was so interesting because I definitely felt the stress about losing money every minute that you're there or
Yeah.
losing time at the location and I do understand like if you have a drunk actor and you only have the one night left then you're gonna have to do something but obviously
Yeah.
the way that I feel like she got drunk because of the way that she was treated.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely maybe this is a film for filmmakers.
Mhm.
I definitely can see filmmakers at least enjoying this more or not enjoying it because they feel stressed by the whole
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Um yeah, no, I agree. And I think that all of those things were making Gabe so so angry and anxious, and that was building up within him, and then just, played on how he treated Allison as well. So it was quite a vicious circle. Um yeah, so I really wanted to talk about as well about Aubrey Plaza. Because
Yes.
for me, she was so good in there, so good.
I really like Parks and Recreation, but she was not my favorite actor in that. And I think she was quite a start of her career. Well, I think, had she done Scott Pilgrim First the World by then? I think she had, or at the same time.
Yeah, or maybe yeah.
And I really liked her, but it was more like, it was just more like, oh, she's just one of the characters I like watching, with nothing special.
Mhm.
And what really changed everything for me was seeing her in Ingrid Goes West. Have you seen that?
Mhm.
I
Yeah, yeah,
literally,
yeah.
like, I recommend that film to everybody because I just think it's so good, because she plays this social media obsessed kind of girl um who literally, like, gets into quite severe mental health issues because of social media. And I just, the film itself is really good because just of, like, the point that's trying to make. But I just thought she was just excellent in that. And since then, I've really been thinking, like, I need to follow her career more because I just saw that. And then, yeah, and then this was just, like, again, something completely different.
Yeah. As well with the happiest season, because she plays a normal character, and that's not normal of her to play someone who's not super sarcastic and just with a dry humor. And in there, she just plays a normal person, and that was just showing the different ranges that she can that she can do. And yeah, like Black Bear, I thought that she was incredible, super good. I really like the guy who plays Gabe.
I
Christopher
I
Abbott,
love
is that
It
his
Comes at
name?
Night. It's one of my favorite horror films. So when I
Yeah.
saw him, I was like, oh my god, it's him. And that instantly
Mhm.
just made me, because I think, well, I've not seen everything Aubrey Plaza has done or Christopher Abbott has done, but when I see an actor from a film that I've really liked, I always think, like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
maybe they picked their projects really well. I don't know. Maybe they've got a really good agent, but in this
Mhm.
case, I think it holds up. Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah.
And I think what I really like about Aubrey Plaza is that she stays very true to herself. Like, she has, like, a huge range, but I think, so she's very, obviously she was picked for Parks and Recreation because she has a little bit of, like, a moody voice and a bit of a dry, uh, a bit dry and a bit moody, and that is kind of what I thought she was going to be cast as from then on. But then actually she does such different things while still sticking to her kind of. It's really hard to explain what I mean. I just feel like she
Yeah.
doesn't
So like,
actually change that dry voice she has, yet she still plays a completely different character.
yeah, for sure. Like she still has that core Aubrey Plaza who she is. Like it kind of feels that this character is April from Parks and Rec after she's seen some stuff in life. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree. Christopher Abbott, I do think that he plays the same person all the time, and he's a great person. I love the characters that he plays, but I haven't seen any range.
I think it's probably similar actually to Aubrey Plaza, as in what I was trying to say with her is that she very much plays an extension of who she is, but in, like, very, very, like, very much of an extension. So it goes very far away from her, but still it remains kind of with her at the same time, and that's probably why she gives it such raw emotion. And I actually think that he does a
Hmm.
similar thing. It's just I haven't seen enough of him to really comment on it, but I do think it's different enough from what I've seen.
The other actress, I've only seen her in one film, The Moth Diaries. Have you seen that
No,
one?
and when I was, like, doing research on this, I don't think I've seen her in anything before. So yeah, she was completely new to me. Or if I've seen her before, I wouldn't have remembered that that was her.
Yeah. So in this film, The Moth Diaries, she's just someone. I mean, she has a important parts in the film, but she's not that good of an actress in there. And then at times, watching Black Bear, I felt like she wasn't up to the standards. But I don't think that that would be completely fair to say that, because I think that she, played good, uh, good versions of that person that she was playing. I completely believed who she was. I was just so engrossed in, you know, Gabe and Allison.
I think, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have these films where because someone else is so good, it just overpowers everyone else's performance, and that 100% happened here with Aubrey Plaza, and I think that's
Mm.
fine because she was leading, and it wasn't like anyone else was bad. It's just that no one was at the standard she was, but then, her role was also the most challenging.
So the director and the writer, Lawrence Michael Levine, um, as I said to you when
Mm,
we were starting to research about this film, he's worked with his wife in many films. His wife is Sofia Takao. I don't know how to say her name, but she directed Black Christmas 2 years ago. And so she directed a film in 2016, I guess. Yeah, called Always Shine, and he's written this film. And it's looking back at their filmography together. You
mm,
can totally see that they always play with this idea of duality. So always halfway through the film, something happens that is gonna change what you thought. So what Lawrence, because we're on the first name basis, what he does is he makes it about the people. So something changes, and of course the plot changes, but it's very uh, inherent, in the sense that he's talking about people and characters and identity. So even Black Bear, as we were saying, like it changes, the plot changes completely in the same way that we think we're watching two different films. But I think that the whole identity issue is way more prevalent in his filmography. But you have to watch Always Shine and tell me what you think.
it creeps me out slightly that he's worked a lot with his wife just because of like the heavy elements here, at least in the second part of the film, about there's definitely an element of like what is it like to work with your partner on something that's very very
Mm-hmm.
emotionally draining, and how is that for your relationship, and I wonder how inspired it is on
Yeah,
working together in their marriage. I feel like what this film was saying
yeah,
was kind of saying that it's not always good for
yeah.
it's not always good for you or your relationship, maybe, because there are just certain things that a director might have to do to direct an actor, and I'm sure that a director can direct nicely if they want, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean they always do. So if that's your wife, that's it's weird.
Yeah, yeah. I do feel like it's weird, and so Lawrence and Sofia Takao, her the wife, so they've done a lot of projects where something happened the same way that it happened in Black Bear, the second part. There's always like a triangle and some tension, and there's some weird sex going on. So yeah, so maybe he took inspiration from his um, past uh, endeavors with his wife. That could
And I
totally
definitely
be
think
something.
either way, even if like they didn't have this whole love triangle thing, I'm sure that in most long-term relationships there's gonna be, it doesn't have to be another person, but there's going to be a level of someone feeling threatened by something, whether it's a career or a person or whatever.
Mm.
And I felt like they really managed to put that feeling on on the screen. Like I really felt the way that Blair felt in the first part and Allison felt in the second part. Just like that eerie feeling that like, well, that it's just like that something is just getting away from you, and so it could just be based on something
Yeah,
on that it's just that there's always going to be something like that. But it could also be a more literal
yeah.
inspiration, but I hope not for them.
You one can almost read the film in a third way by, like you said, saying that it's looking at um, relationships, like romantic relationships, and what makes what makes the relationship explode.
I was totally gonna say that earlier when you're talking about identity, just the fact that I think if you're in a really either a really bad relationship or someone is really horrible to you, you can be a very different person than if when you surround yourself with the right people. So
Mm-hmm.
so it could be about identity, like you said, because I think it makes a lot of sense that Allison is two people at once. But in the second version, Gabe is just like such a complete asshole to her and like pushes her so far that she kind of becomes a worse version of herself than she is in the first one. Even though she's not perfect in the first one, but she's more like a good person who's a little bit flawed. And the second one,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't say she's a bad person. The second one, I just think that she's probably very disappointed in herself in that one, and really not the person she'd like to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes sense. And I've definitely been around people that I feel like have some sort of effect on you, where you're just not the best version you can be, and with other people,
Mm-hmm.
you are. So, yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
definitely a part of identity as well. I don't think any individual is the same around every person they know.
Yeah. I think that the whole idea around identity and even how you look at someone when they're around other people, like you can feel that you don't know
Mm.
someone because they've changed so much. So like identity, laws of identity are just multiple identities.
Yeah, I like that what you said about when you look at someone else that sometimes you don't know the person because they're a completely different person around. And maybe
Mm.
and maybe that's the fact when they're filming they're both the worst version of themselves, but you don't know if their relationship is actually really really good away from doing film, because I do remember he said in the film as well at some point to her, he said, "I told you this was gonna break us up, or like this was gonna break our marriage."
Mm.
So yeah, so you don't know. Maybe like I don't personally believe you have to do absolutely everything with your partner, and especially when it comes to creative processes, unless if that's maybe how you met or you really connect on that level, especially if you're both creators, because it makes me think of things like La La Land, even though they don't work
Mm-hmm.
together, just like the idea of having two very creative, passionate people in one relationship is not always. I feel like
Yeah.
it's a dream of artists, but it's not always what you actually end up enjoying when you're in it.
Yeah. that that I can attest to. And La La Land is one of my favorite films, so I love that you gave that
Yeah, that's so. I
example.
love it as well. So good.
So, would you recommend Black Bear to
I was
people?
thinking about this question before we started recording because I knew it was gonna come, and I don't have a clear answer. But I would say yes for sure. I think it's very very good. But also I'll know who to recommend it to.
Yeah, agreed. I just recommended it to my brother, but I know he's gonna enjoy it. And if he doesn't, I know that we're gonna have a fight. He's gonna be like, I hated it. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend to anyone. Like, because you have to know, what kind of films the person would like. You cannot just recommend Black Bear to anyone. Like, I wouldn't recommend it to my parents because they would very much enjoy like a film that finishes with the finish. Um, but yeah, I would totally recommend it. Loved it.
Yeah, I loved it as well. I would also recommend to my brother because he's a director, so I feel like he'll have a lot of interpretation to do as well. And I also
Hmm.
think I'd
Yeah.
recommend this more than something like Mulholland Drive, because Mulholland Drive is 3 hours long, and I hated it while I was watching it, and I loved it when it had finished. This I actually loved the whole way through, even while I was watching it. I like that it's similar to Black Bear, that it's not necessarily very clear what it's about.
Yeah, there are some films like that. I'm not gonna say the word identity again, like I cannot. I said it like 100 times. But it is about like people going through something and then people just descending into madness, which I think another horror trope that we can add to Black Bear is descent into
Yes, but the
madness.
more I think about it, the more it is definitely horror. Or at least like I'm also thinking when I'm thinking of recommending it to people, I'd probably also only recommend it to my horror film
Mm,
friends.
your
My
fans.
fans and my friends. And I wouldn't really recommend to people who I know enjoy like dramas or something.
Hmm.
And they don't enjoy
Yeah.
horror.
Yeah, and what you said about hating something, why whilst you watch it, I felt that with many films that are now my favorite
Yeah.
films. So Images from 72 by Altman is one of my favorite films, and when I watched it for the first time, I was like, what is happening? I don't understand this. And the more I watch it, so I'm Shudder if you want to watch it, the more I watch it, the more I like it.
Yeah, it's weird.
But Black Bear, like you said, when I watched it, I loved it, the whole thing. And when it finished, I loved it even more. So that's perhaps why I liked it so much, because it made me think, it made me engaged.
Yeah,
And it's just, there's so much to unpack there.
definitely. I mean, I feel like I could talk about it for even longer, but at the same time, I also don't know what more to say about it.
Yeah,
Um,
me
but I
too.
think, I generally just think any theory on the film will do, because I just feel like it's a film that really grabs a certain emotion, and whatever emotion that is, that's how you're gonna
Hmm.
connect to it, and that's how you're gonna base the theory you have on it. Um, and I like that as well. I think not every film has to tell you exactly what's happened, for you to find some common ground with it.
I love the Baywatch swimsuit.
Yes, I love that anyway. In general, the scenes on the platform in her bathing suit I found very interesting, because
Mm.
it gave the difference in it sort of set a point of like where things were changing all the time, and obviously that was the last scene of the film as well, wasn't it? Again, where I just thought,
Mhm.
is it starting over, or is there something new, or maybe it was her writing a new draft of whatever she was writing,
Mhm.
depending on what you think was happening. Maybe it was a new version of Addison.
Mm.
Could be anything. I wish it was longer, or a limited series. I wanted like a third or fourth part even, but we only got two.
Yeah. I think it was enough for me. I felt so anxious throughout the whole thing that I felt that was enough. The Power of Pod Compels You is produced and hosted by Bruna Lucas and Lisa Gertz, and edited by Lisa Gertz. The music is by Julia Sofia, the artwork by Sibeli Lucas, and the narration by Bruna. This podcast is hosted on Buzzsprout. If you want to suggest a particular topic or film for us to discuss, then please email us on thepowerofpodcompelsyou@gmail.com or Twitter @powerofpod.